Hello, this is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
Having ya, it's the Black Country Blokes chewing the fat with me, Kev Dillon, Lee Cadman, Craig Pinches, and our special guest today is Pat Lewis. But before we go into Pat's story, I'd just like to give my deepest condolences to the loss of Fred Cummings. Now, Fred was a referee and judge and MC, but I think he was judging since the 70s. Now, Fred was one of the best officials in the game and one of the best MCs, because you knew if he was there, we were going to have a fair night. So, and I mean, he was so passionate about amateur boxing. And I heard through lockdown, when I phoned him up to make sure he was all right, that he boxed at a very high level when he in his youth, and he also played a very good level of rugby. So, and through lockdown, he was going to come on this show, and what a story he had, being a policeman for years and all the bouts and experience he had in boxing. So my heart goes out to his family. Once again, the game will be a different place without you in it. Now, let me introduce Pat Lewis. Pat Lewis has come on today. He's a father of, how many children have you got, Pat? Three children. And the middle one, Josh, has got autism. So I thought it'd be great to have your dad coming on today, telling us how it is, not only having an autistic child and telling us about autism, but how it affects us as dads, because you love your children no matter what they've got. But when they're babies, you have so many different dreams and ideals of what's going to happen. And sometimes this bombshell, like with my parents when I lost my vision, this bombshell hits, and sometimes it's a bloody hard pill to swallow, isn't it, bro?
Yeah, it is, yeah. So Josh is 15 now. He was diagnosed with autism when he was 6. He's been with the CAMS all his life. Started at sort of mainstream school. We knew there was something wrong. He didn't pass any of the tests as you're proceeding through your baby stages and your toddler stages, and then eventually we found a psychologist. Having terrible problems at school with him. We thought it was behaviour, but it was just autism. That was all it was. You had to have what's called a 24-hour statement when you've got somebody sat next to you every minute that you're at school. So we had an independent psychologist, and he said that he should be at special school just on the basis of how much help he needs. And things started to get a little bit better then. And he went down to Woodsetton, and he went to the primary school there. That was okay. Didn't talk a lot. Now we can't stop him talking. Yeah. He loves the boxing. Obviously, that's why we're here. I love the boxing. He boxes with you, doesn't he? Yeah. 4 times a week. He's the problem with Josh now that we're having, because he's coming into his adolescence. He's coming into his teenage years, is his aggression. And when it's something, because when you're autistic, if you lose something, you don't understand. I've got to look for it. I've got to ask somebody to look for it. He doesn't know how to ask. So it's normally a load of aggression and a load of upset. And then finally, after that's all over and he's calmed down, he'll then ask you to help him. He's on medication. He's on quite a heavy dose of medication now in order to try and help with that area of his autism. He's also got learning difficulties as well, which obviously impounds on the autism as well. So he's got his own psychologist. He's got CAMS. He's at special school. He gets the support that he needs there. We get him the support he needs. And he comes to you, doesn't he?
Well, he's been starting with me for the last few weeks, and you've been coming up the gym on and off for years. Yeah. He come up to mainstream class, as well as your other daughter, Jasmine. So hello, Jasmine.
Hello, Jas.
But he's just started coming up, doing one-to-ones, and you've said already the improvement with him, with his temper and his.
I mean, what's he been up now? 6 weeks solid, isn't he?
Something like that.
And it's a lot. 4 times a week. It's heavy. That is. Yeah. I mean, I'm struggling. I do it with him, and I'm struggling a little bit. But yeah, he's definitely calmer. He's nicer. He likes you, and he gets along with you, respects you.
He likes telling me about his games and Fortnite and telling me about his interests.
Which we try and minimise, because the games don't help him. Mm-hmm. Because of course, as you know, with these games now, they're so good that you go from very high to very low quickly. Yeah. And obviously that doesn't help his condition. because this condition is one of, how you're feeling and, how you react to the stimulus around you and stuff like that. So me and Kim, that's my wife, that's Josh's mum.
You're right, Kim.
Yeah, we've been on a Signet course where they take you through, because incredibly, I was completely ignorant to mental health, completely ignorant to it until I had Josh. And then obviously you just get exposed to it quite massively. And until about, he's been with CAMS now, it's going to be coming up to 11 years. We've never had a course on it. You're just going through the motions of trying to parent somebody with this condition. And it's quite a severe condition. There's not a lot known about it. People are starting to get geared with it now, but before, there wasn't much known about it. Even within schools, they didn't know much about it.
Yeah.
The mainstream school that he went to, I won't mention names obviously, but the mainstream school he went to, he was really struggling.
Was he just put down as a naughty child?
Yeah, he was sat on his own a lot. There wasn't any specialist help other than somebody just teaching. As if he was a little bit slower than the others. That was completely wrong. We know that now.
There's I was speaking to someone the other day, actually, a cousin of mine, and she said that 2 of her children are autistic. One's in the primary, one's in the secondary. And she said that the secondary school one, I think she's towards the end of school, and they've waited for so long to get, is it ECB?
Education Healthcare Plan.
Yeah, something like that. It's taken them so long to say, oh, she needs it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a schooling system, like you say. Yeah. It's a relatively new concept to like the educational system. Yeah. And she says she knew that her youngest was going to have autism or diagnosed. He'd just been diagnosed because he used to stack things up and never used to play with anything. He'd stack them up and he'd have things in order. I'll be absolutely honest. I don't know a hell of a lot about autism. I mean, is there in a nutshell that you could explain to someone?
It's difficult. I think it's different in every case, isn't it?
And
they have different.
That's why it's a spectrum.
It's a spectrum.
Yeah,
I mean, in a nutshell, Josh is he fantasizes over things. Some things you don't want him to fantasize over because they're negative, aren't they? Yeah. Probably discussed it with you in the past, and he fantasizes over good things, like he's a fanatical Wolves fan. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. He's a fanatical Wolves fan, and he loves the football, so I get him to the Wolves as often as I can. But as you say, with Josh, it's there are some. I mean, obviously, I know a lot of people who've got kids who are autistic because we're in that world, and they do seem to be similar.
It's about dealing with how they deal with the outside world, really, isn't it? A lot of it comes down to how they perceive the outside world and other people. Yeah, I think a lot of the conditions based around that, isn't it?
It is, social conditioning and how you perceive. I mean, for example, you could be talking to Josh and you could be joking, and he won't see it as a joke. Yeah. He might see that as you being personal or you're criticising him. So you got to be very careful with him, what you say and how you say it and how you put it across. I mean, when Josh comes here he's been here today at 4 training. I try and stay out of it a little bit, don't I? Because he doesn't want me telling him how to do anything. Does he? He'll only hear everything, which is the way it should be, really.
But that's how dads and sons are, isn't it?
Yeah. But we've had some really hard times. We've had some really low times, and I've had to sort of sometimes question your own mental health. Sometimes how low you do get because you really are on your own with this problem, and when it's not going right, and he's angry, and he's shouting and he's upset by something that we would think was nothing really. And that's what you're coming home to. I mean, at work, for example, I have a thing called a RAP at work, Regional Adjustments Programme, or PASS, what they call it, where you're allowed certain allowances at work. Yeah. So quite often I may have to go home, just calm him down, make sure everything's okay if he's not happy or something's wrong. So I have to feel built into my whole day to change my day. Some of them don't understand. Some people may not understand that at work, and they may see that as you want to get out of work, but it's not. It's purely and simply because you have to be there for him. I mean, I used to work in Birmingham, and I came here to work because I live here because of Josh. That's how severe the problem can be.
Close proximity.
Yeah, so I can get back and help out with Kim, because obviously she burdens most of it. She's obviously with him most of the time. So
I mean, that's similar to my experience with my daughter. It's very. And you don't. Before my daughter was born, I was in disability equipment sales, which I'm still in now. Yeah. And I thought I knew a bit then. I was going around people's houses and I'd seen a lot and thought. But once you come along, it's just a total different whole world, and I knew nothing, and I still know nothing.
Did you get the feeling? Did you ever? I know it sounds terrible because you shouldn't. Because I always say to my wife, I said when it's really bad, I'll say, well, look, it could be worse. It could be very severe. It could be terminal. It could be something worse. There's always somebody worse off than you, isn't it? That's a cliche. That's a line for you. That's important. Do you ever sit there when it's really bad and think, why has this happened to me? Why us?
Quite often. I don't tend to as much now, but we've had bouts in hospital where quite a few times where they said you might not make this.
Do you want to tell Pat about your daughter?
We've spoke about it, to be honest. Before we're coming out, we had a brief conversation about that. And in those times, you sit there, you're sitting in hospital, it's got tubes hanging out just about everywhere, and you think, what we done? What we done to, what's she done?
Yeah.
She's an innocent girl who's just happened to come into this world. She's done nothing. But you can't think like that, can you? You've got to get that out. But it does creep in. That negativity does creep in. But you've got to get that out of there. And ultimately, she's a happy girl. Yeah. And you know what? If all my kids were as happy as throughout their life, I've done my job.
Well, that's a reflection of you as a parent, that you've made that happiness, haven't you? Because it could be a sort of I'll give up and go home kind of attitude, couldn't it? Which quite a lot of people do have. But I think the worst thing that gets me is knowing that he may not make his full potential in life. I mean, the first thing he'll say to anybody when he meets him, I'm going to be a boxer one day, Dad. Yeah, I'm going to be a millionaire boxer.
You just said that to me.
Yeah, he just said it. First on meets these, that's the first thing he'll say to him. It shows an interest in him. I'm going to be a millionaire boxer. And you're like, well, you might be. You can never rule it out, can you? Yeah. But, you just think, well, I've got pretty much a full life. I've done pretty much everything I wanted to do. I think I'm healthy, and hopefully I'll have a full, and, you just feel a bit down that he may not get what he wants out of life because of that condition, and that's the only thing that I really. But again, like you, I've of the mind. I always say to Kim, let's do good things, happy. On days off, let's go Alton Towers. Let's go and have some good times for all the bad times you can put to one side. Then, can't you?
Yeah, that's it.
What both your kids have got though is loving parents.
Yeah,
and I think love can carry through a lot of the downsides of life. I mean, life's can be tough no matter whether you live in a cardboard box or in a 20-bedroom mansion.
Yeah.
Never mind with health problems, but as long as you've got love on your side, I think you've got something. Sorry, Lee.
How do you feel the outside world perceives it? I haven't spoke to you about this, but when you're out and about, will the autism kind of flare up then and cause a scene? Yeah.
So if I was thinking about this on the way here. Actually, I was thinking the worst thing we used to have, and we still have now, is when we're in public. So we go towards ours and he has something he's not happy with and he starts shouting. And people are looking and looking. And you're thinking, well, you've seen a kid have a tantrum before. This isn't a tantrum, obviously. It's something else. They don't know that. They think it's bad parent, naughty kid. But it's not. But that's probably the worst moments we have with him. And then it's quite often he'll tell you exactly what he thinks of you and stuff. He doesn't mean any of it, and he doesn't really understand when he's discussing something. He doesn't really understand what he's talking about. So if he starts talking about race issues, I don't think he really understands what he's talking about.
Kind of repeating what he may have heard.
That's why you've got to be careful around him. He gets positive role models, because if he gets negative ones, he'll keep those for himself and he'll use those.
I mean, again, like from my experience, it's different because my daughter will be loud and vocal. She can't talk, but she'll be screaming in happiness and excitement. And it never really bothers me people looking, but I wish they'd come over and ask instead of just looking. I've got no problem explaining anything, but it's when they're kind of looking, especially slightly different, because they're probably looking at your situation and going, well, that kid's a bit naughty.
Yeah. I mean,
yours has got the wheelchair, hasn't she?
Yeah, so it's kind of explained.
Yeah,
in
so
a sense.
It's physical, isn't it? Whereas Josh, you would talk. You could, if you didn't know Josh, you probably talk to him. I think Josh has probably declined mentally. I don't think he's advanced since. I mean, they've told me he's got a mental ability of a 5-year-old. So, but I think his speech has declined. We've got him speech therapy as much as we can. We could try and enhance that by talking to him and explaining the words and how you pronounce them. I think that's declined. So I think now it's more obvious. I think before, when he probably came into your club, it probably wasn't that obvious that he was autistic.
He's so much younger.
Yeah, he was young. He was quieter, wasn't he? Now he's more expressive. Immediately. There's, you're like, So, but yeah, I've kind of. I wouldn't say I'm an expert on autism, but I've kind of over the years I've kind of learned around it. The Signet course was okay. It told you you knew a lot of it anyway, to be fair. You don't need to be told it, you know. I mean, well, the different types of the spectrum is what I found interesting on that course.
Could you tell us some more about like the spectrum of like different things to notice? Or
well, I've got friends he's come to me. He's a good friend of mine. He's a plumber. His daughter's probably junior school age, and he said, Pat, I have to ask you because because of Josh. She sort of sits in the playground on her own.
Yeah.
Doesn't socialise with other kids. I said, well, have you taken her to CAMS, or you've got to go for your GP first? You've got to be gatekeepered into CAMS. And then and he was like, no, because some parents won't. Some,
they're frightened.
Yeah, some don't want to know that there's an issue. Some are obviously frightened, like you just said, Kev, of of them having something. And sometimes it's not that; it might be something else. It could be something completely. It could be she's just a shy kid, and it's her age, or. So there's one. I mean, Josh's indications were he didn't speak at all. He couldn't look you in the eye. He wouldn't look at you at all. He was, he didn't respond to things very well. And he used to cry a lot. I mean, when he was a baby, I mean, he would scream for hours.
That's tough on itself.
Yeah,
isn't it?
and that was bad. Yeah. And now he won't stop talking now.
No.
So. But that also it does mentally harm you a little bit because he's talking to you about the same thing over and over again, and you've explained it to him. But at least he's talking, he's happy.
Yeah. Because let's say, like, sometimes when we're having a conversation, he comes in with something.
Yeah.
But it's just an eager child who's finding it hard to get over what he's trying to say, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, have you noticed he doesn't like if I talk over him, does he?
No,
he doesn't like that.
Well, kids don't do that, you know.
He's like, Dad, I'll say to it. I'll sort it out. This is my training session, not yours. So,
I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, it's a big thing, and you have to deal with it, regardless of how your coping mechanisms or whatever else. So it's even like the public perception side of it when he's having issues in public. How do you feel? How does that make you feel? Does that, because obviously you're consciously aware that people are going to be looking on and judging. Does that make you angry? Does it make you embarrassed? Does it make you think? Do you show any anger or feel any anger to the public, or do you just deal with the moment?
I'll be truthful. I find it really hard to cope with. I really do. It's really difficult to cope with because we look after him really well. He doesn't want for much, and sometimes you kind of treat, because I've got 2 other kids as well. You try, when he's doing stuff in public, you're thinking, why is he doing this to me after all I've done for him? But you can't think like that because it's just his condition.
But we do because we're human.
Yeah, because we're human. Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, but it is hard, and it's hard work. It's not easy. I take my hat off to anyone with in your position, and it's difficult. It's just really difficult. I'm a lot more appreciative of other people now because having gone through this myself, I know how hard it is. I think years ago I would have been quite ignorant to it. I'd be like, what's wrong with you? Get on with it. Now I can really, someone comes to me at work or something, I can really appreciate there's an issue.
So it was only today actually that I was driving down the road, and for some reason something popped into my head, and it was anybody with any disability, and now I felt really bad that I've neglected my body and still do to a certain degree. And there's a lot of people out there that all they want is a healthy body and healthy mind. And I felt really guilty, and part of me took sympathy, and then I sort of shouted at myself. This was today. I thought, how dare you take sympathy? They've not asked for any. For all you know, they are a lot happier than what you are. And I sort of, for some reason today, I had a bit of a down day myself. I sort of worrying with myself in the head that I should appreciate and not take for granted what I can do and what I'm able to do. Yeah. And I've got 2 healthy boys and this and the other. And then I feel guilty, and then I feel angry that I'm feeling guilty when someone's not, asked for sympathy. I take my hat off to anybody that.
I think anyone with a disability, because people know about my eyes, no one wants sympathy. No. People want a bit of empathy, a bit of understanding, a bit of caring. Yeah. Like when I'm out, if someone goes like, "Why not step, Kev?" That's kind, because I might fall over it, or where's the toilets? Tell you what, Kev, I'll show you where they are. But if you just go, oh, that poor Kev, because I've had a full life, your children hopefully will, and grow up, but sympathy is looking down, whereas empathy, you're looking on their level.
Yeah.
But could I just say a quick thing to you two? Because I know with my dad, I've asked this when I got diagnosed, meningitis, went to a coma, lost my eyes. How did you feel when you first had the news? I'll ask Pat first, and I'll ask you then, because he and a lot of people I've talked to said, I felt like almost God was smiting me.
Yeah.
I felt like all the wrongs I'd done. And he goes, but it's not that, it's just one of them bollocks.
I won't lie. I did. You talk about your son, and I think when it sounds old fashioned because I'm a bit old fashioned, but when you're a father and you got a son, I've got 2 daughters, a different relationship with them than I will with him. So I'll go to the boxing with him.
Yeah.
And luckily he loves boxing, he loves football like I do. So we share things. But I got to admit, I did kind of think, like you said, why has this happened to me? I've always treated people with respect, whatever I've done. I've always wanted to be treated with respect myself. So I did sort of go through a period of thinking, what have I done to deserve this? You know. But then I thought, but he's better off than most kids.
Yeah.
And I think potentially when he comes out of his teenage years, he may settle right down and he'll be able to function and hopefully go into supported living or something and be able to live on his own with help from us from a distance and have a relationship and have a job. I did, but now I'm starting to think differently to that. So I'm starting to think differently to that now.
And how about you?
Mirrored that really, exactly the same. You blame yourself and you think, well, where have I gone wrong? What have I done? You know, could I have done anything different? And the truth is, we couldn't have done anything, absolutely anything. It wouldn't have made a blind bit of difference what we'd done and how we reacted. And again, the same. Like I think, same as you. Where as my daughter grows up, she won't have the responsibilities that I've had.
No,
she will be looked after the whole of her life. 100%. You won't have to think about money, work, debt. And when you start thinking about things like that, you go, actually, that's not a bad place to be in at that point either.
No.
You know, that's quite a nice not to have to deal with kind of day to day.
Everything's normal. It's just
she'll live in that
normal.
she'll live in that innocent bubble that she's in now. You know, she's an innocent child. She'll live with it, won't change from that.
Can I ask you, do you worry about vulnerability and stuff? Because people can take advantage.
I worry more about that with my other 2 children, as in terms of bullying and things like that. Like my eldest has just gone to secondary school, and that worries the hell out of me.
Yeah.
That she's going to get bullied because of you know, kids can be horrible. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they can.
And they don't understand what that position's like.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure if these kids who bully about disabilities, if you give them a day in the life of me, looking after my daughter or my wife, or the same on your side, it changes instantly. Yeah,
I mean, because I have to be careful with Josh with vulnerability because he obviously, you know, when he gets old, he's going to want to have friends, you know, around, go out with friends, and there's nothing really to stop that. I don't see there being anything to stop that. Luckily for us, not Woody, he's been surrounded by sensible people most of his life, and we haven't had any major issues. But it is something I have to keep an eye on with Josh. Who's how vulnerable he is to suggestions and impressionable.
My daughter's age range isn't in that. Won't get to that point. So she's gonna. She's 5 and functions between 8 and 12 months old. That might go up, but it's never going to go up to.
No.
You know, if it goes to 5 years old, we've done well.
Yeah.
So she's never going to be at that point of going out with her own friends and doing that kind of thing.
And I suppose, like with the different, once again, the spectrum of circumstance,
Yeah.
you're always going through adolescence, they were starting to notice women, and then and how I like that girl, but am I allowed to touch? Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
And I think that's the next stepping stone.
That's a difficult subject, very difficult, because he's starting to show signs of that. Well, I mean, I don't know whether he's geared to be able to have a relationship for now, if you know what I mean. Because I've got a responsibility with him, making sure he doesn't do any harm to anyone else as much as anyone else to him. Yeah. So it works both ways, doesn't it? I mean, he's never indicated anything unhealthy. He's never said anything that would lead you to believe that he could be, you know, anything than a normal relationship. Yeah. He's quite a caring kid. I mean, he would never let. I was in the kitchen putting his boxing boots on the other day, waiting to come and train with you, and I didn't see the moth on the floor. I trod on this moth. Yeah. And he was really upset by it because I killed the moth all the way to here. You killed the moth, Dad. You killed the moth. Why did you kill that moth, Dad? I said, Josh, because you didn't tell me it was there. Yeah. But he loves animals. I mean, he hates animal cruelty. So he loves animals and stuff, and you know, so that shows he's got that side that's kind, that's going to be compassionate.
Yeah.
He gets that from you and your missus. Yeah. And that's, as I say, like when we say education, we think education starts at school. Education starts at home.
We send it a lot lately when we mean you, yeah.
And then your next form of education is your peers, the people you surround yourself with. Because if you're not about someone and they are effing and jeffing or they're stamping on spiders, then you think it's acceptable. The third education is school. You know what I mean? It's the teachers, but we get so much other education, but yet we blame the schools.
And I think that's what it is. You've got to understand that the family rules are what govern your moral compass, your upbringing. You know, I've seen it before where people have got, oh, he's learnt that at school, and they say, no, well, it's up to you to correct that. You know, you can't pass the buck on parenting. If my kids grow, not saying that if they grow up to knock around with the wrong kind and get into trouble, because they can, as much love and whatever we give them, because that's just life. You know, they will take their own path. But if I'm going to sit there and listen to him swear, and I'm going to listen to him shout and get upset on a game and this and the other, that's on me. You know, that's not on the school to correct that. That's on me as a parent. And if I can't do that little task of at least showing them right from wrong, because no kid knows right from wrong. You know, none of us do. It's a blank canvas, life is, and they do something wrong, you correct them or you praise them if they do something right, and that's how they learn. If you leave them to it and you don't correct them, and you don't, you don't do anything.
You learn from somewhere. If you're not correcting them, the peers, the teachers, the bullies, the saints, the vicar, whoever it is, they will take the mold then.
So they'll correct them given the standards that they want to correct them. And mate, like you say, kids are cruel and kids are spectacular. You know, they can be one or the other, and they can be both. What I was going to ask you, and I think I've asked Lee this before, is you've obviously got other children as well.
Yeah, true.
How do they take it, knowing that obviously sometimes the other one needs more attention at that time, and that they're
really good about it. They do sort of, well, my younger one down there now doing a bit of boxing with Josh and she on the bags and that. She looks after him really well. Does a lot of running around with him. If he needs something, she gets it for him. My eldest, if he's on, say, I don't know, on some program on the telly and he's trying to type something in, obviously he can't read or write, so she'll type it in for him. So they're nurturing, they help him. They understand that probably 70% of the time is going to be with Josh, and then the rest. But they'll never miss out on attention. If they want attention, then it's there. It's always going to be given to them. And if they want to come and do, like she said tonight, my youngest said, "Can I come to the boxing club with you and do some boxing with Josh?" Yeah, of course you can. And Kev was good enough to say yes as well. So I'll never say no. Discipline is the one I've always been hooked up on. I don't know whether you're the same. I have to discipline my kids differently. Because of Josh's condition, I can't discipline the same. I can't say to him, I can't discipline the same as my. I've got an 18-year-old girl.
What's her name again? Sorry,
Amelia.
Hello, Amelia.
You dare kill that? You
met Amelia once, haven't you?
Yeah.
I'm not going to kill that. So I can't speak to her the same way. So I have to keep adjusting my parenting skills with what children I've got. Jasmine, as you know, is a bright little button, and she's like, it's pretty much not much you have to say to her most of the time.
Very talented as well, Jasmine. Get yourself back up here.
Naturally, sure, So that's to answer your question.
Yeah, it does. You know, see, it's going to be. I mean, my children, they don't have any.
How many children you got?
I've got two. I've got an 8-year-old and a 2-year-old. Yeah. And when we had the first one, when we was pregnant with the second one, I thought, I'm a parent.
Yeah.
Walk in the park.
You
know that rule book? That rule book
goes out the
window because my youngest, he's feral. Yeah, feral. He's not feral, but
he's lively.
Mate, he's his own spirit. And that's why I asked as well, because like sometimes Roman needs a little bit more work to correct him, and Troy's like, well, you always saying the other. And I wondered how they take it, because some kids are understanding and some we set down to your parenting as well.
It's if when I mean, I've said other than Josh, I mean, and autism, a teenage girl hitting the age of 17 to 18, I find probably the most challenging. Because I always thought, in my ignorance as a parent, I always thought that teenage girls were going to be angelic, the wonderful. And then, I mean, I'm not complaining she's terrible. She's a good girl, but you've got to guide them, haven't you? And they've got their own mind, and then you realise
boyfriends to kill, and
there's a boyfriend that comes on you don't like. You've had that, and then you've got and then
the
you
growing up of becoming a woman and thinking,
and now she is a woman, and you're like, I can. Well, she lives under my roof. I can sort of set some guide right, but she's 18 now, so really, my time of saying you can't is over. Pretty much so, unless it's in my house, and then So I found. I mean, I think parenting is just a journey, isn't it?
oh yeah, mate.
So
and you've got to be willing to change, haven't you? You've got to think this isn't working, and with everything, it's growth. And especially through having two mainstream and then Josh, the bar is going to be set different, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And
it's if you're getting A stars, that's brilliant. But if you're attending boxing 4 times, that is just as equally brilliant. You know what I mean? And you've said that to me before, haven't you?
The goals are different. In some ways, probably even more impressive that my daughter reaches because she's reaching them. You know? She's not going to be a boxer, but she just learned to eat. You know, we never thought we'd see that.
What's the syndrome that she suffers from?
Dravet syndrome is a main condition. There's underlying things, but that's a main condition.
Could you just explain it to that, please?
It's a rare form of epilepsy.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's a rare form of epilepsy. Learning disability, stage 1 kidney failure. There's a few things underlying. But yeah, so the achievements change, don't they? It's just a lower, not even a lower bar. It's bar. A different bar. It's eating to us is just normal, isn't it? But you know, some people struggle with that. Do you find you're affected by it? Say, for example, do you find you go through depression, or do you find you have bouts of times where you probably need help as well? Oh, I have. I've sought help, and this podcast helps me no end. But the year before we started this, I think it was, I was flying around. There was I was in counselling for a few weeks because of it all. I mean, we had to stay. I'll say she's been in and out in a hospital on death's door, and we had a stage where we had, I think, 3 deaths in the family. That happened. My wife was in hospital, so I was looking after my daughter at home. She became ill, so while I was upstairs with my daughter, while I was in resus with my daughter, my wife was upstairs with C. diff. You know, and all that, I held all that in. I'm a bloke. I'm not meant to. The perception, you're not meant to cry. You're strong. You just keep going every day, trying to work as well. Because my wife doesn't work. She looked after my daughter.
She was a teacher, wasn't she?
A teaching assistant, and I just let it build up to the point where I'd have had a breakdown, or which is understand. I mean, my wife can't work. She was a beautician and worked in a bank, and she had to stop because of Josh. Because there's so much care, isn't there, that you have to provide. I mean, I still hear the word. I still hear the word special, and I don't know about you, but when I hear that word, I probably used to use that word when I wasn't a dad. I don't remember doing that, but I still hear that word. I still hear that word for family members, younger family members, and I still think, I wouldn't say I see red, but I do sit there and think, you don't know, do you, what that means to me? You know, because it's for me, it's a bit of it's
a throwaway term.
It's a derogatory term, isn't it?
I believe so. Yeah.
And it's still, sometimes I'm not sensitive at all, but sometimes I think it's done out of jest, and I hear people who probably shouldn't say that word quite often, who know my situation as well.
What terminologies would you prefer?
Special for me is the wrong terminology, and it's said in a tone. Do you get what I mean? It's said in a tone like he's a bit special, isn't he?
Oh,
you know,
it's not the word.
I bet he's special. And I don't like that. I'd rather, if you're going to say that, I'd rather didn't say anything, quite to be honest, because none of us are normal. I've got some funny traits that I do. I'm probably a bit autistic myself, but you know, we've all got funny things that we do. We've all got our likes and dislikes. We've all got our breaking points, haven't we? Some of us can cope with anything, and you probably found that you've probably found, I don't know whether I'm right, but correct me if I'm wrong, you probably found that your strain is massively up there.
Oh yeah,
because you managed to cope
with so much. But then not so much now. Like, it's all calmed down with my daughter, and she's quite healthy, and you know, she goes to school. It's all good. But when we was in the worst of it, you always felt like you were up here, and one thing could overflow that bucket, but that one thing could come, you do it, and you just deal with it. The problem is you're never emptying it. And not so much now. So through doing this podcast and getting on here and just talking to the lads, that's been more help to me than probably anything I've done previously. Well,
I knew the boxing would help me because I came to Kev about, we reckon it's about 2 or 3 years, don't we? I'm obviously too old to get involved and compete, so you know, we train a lot, don't we?
Yeah.
And it definitely helps me mentally as well. Helps me, you know, keep my levels of anger down and upset, and you know, cope with things.
Gives you a release.
Again, yeah, that's the word I'm looking for, I suppose. Just release, isn't it? And then it's just a matter of me just sort of, you know, having a bit of quiet time yourself when you can get it on your own.
I do that quite often as well. I have a caravan in Wales, and I'll quite often go down a day before everyone else. Just so I can.
Well, I told Kevin I've just built a man cave. I've got a man cave. So I got to retreat into that cave. And I can see them in there, and I'll have an hour. And then little Jazz will come to window wave. So I think this is time for me to go back. But I'll have an hour in that man cave. I'll watch my telly, and I'll sit there and go, oh, jeez.
But that's something I wanted to ask you about, because like your wife, women are good at talking about it.
Yeah,
they can just sit at a table and go, and not actually. They can talk at the same time, not listen and feel better.
Yeah.
But us blokes, like you were just saying, and you feel, I can't release it.
Yeah.
So we can like, hit the bags, but how often just sit down as a group of blokes like we're doing now, and actually have an open, frank conversation, saying, you know, some days I'm a breaking, but some days when no one's here, I'll go and have a cry on the settee, or I'll go and But we're not allowed to feel like we are allowed to feel like, and by the grace of God, we are starting to do this. Yeah. But do you ever feel like that? Feel like alone in this?
As you know, I was dreading coming here. I don't do this really that well. I'm not very good at this, and I'm very good at telling people stuff, not about me.
Yeah.
I'm very good at talking about somebody. I mean, I've done, you know, I'll go into it, but I've done a long time of talking to people about their problems and how we resolve them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I was dreading. I know I was dreading it because I was thinking about it at least on Friday.
Yeah.
And that means I'm thinking about it. That means I'm thinking, shall I back out of this?
Yeah.
But I know, as you know, I don't back out of anything. So, and I wanted to come and do it because I wanted to see whether it'd be beneficial to me, and obviously it is.
Yeah.
Because you just, I mean, who would you talk to about stuff? I mean, if I went in and spoke to someone new at work, and the minute you see their eyes glazing over because they're listening to it again.
Yeah.
And you know they don't really want to know, like, you know.
Well, that's how we think.
Yeah.
We think that they think.
Yeah.
But I know for a fact that he's probably not got the problems I've got, but he's probably got marital problems as well.
Yeah.
They're as bad to him. They're as bad as my problems.
Yeah.
But you know, it's. I mean, if it's. I mean, yeah. You don't blokes like, especially if I'm probably. Am I the eldest here?
Yeah.
I'm older than you. I'm 10 years older than you, aren't I?
Yeah.
In my day, you'd never, ever talk about this. Never, because it was just something you just suck it up and get on with it, wouldn't you?
Well, that's carried on, as I say, that's carried on really. You know, it's opening up probably in the last 2 or 3 years that blokes are able to go out and talk and be open. I can't imagine 15 years ago though. I've been and because there was less help and there's less understanding, less help. There's less of everything.
And no one wanted to be that first bloke. We're all sat here now and going, I've got problems. You go, aye. And then go, like, well, my missus left me going, oh well. but by the end,
I'm on a short problem.
Yeah. But by the end, no matter what it is, from as severe or as minute, we've all got problems. And when you start chipping it away and going, I'm angry because of this. I'm sad because of this. I overeat. I under it. And we've all got this thing. And by the grace of God that we're all starting talking about it now, the floodgates are going to open.
You know where I feel the thing is, I mean, that's what brought us all here. That's what started the podcast, is all of us having problems to a certain degree. You know, it was started to help people with problems that are alike to ours. And I think what it is before you dared not say that back in, even when I was younger, you know, I'd hear my granddad say, oh, he's standing over, he's being a babby or whatever. And you think, well, like, as a kid, you just think, oh, he must be being a tit then, because my granddad said he's being a tit.
Yeah.
I think the trouble is now that judgment is passed far easier. You know, back then he'd have said, oh, man up, and he'd have forgot about it. Now, you'll get ridiculed for it, and it's out there in the big. So if you're going to be judged, if you say I've got problems, and some people are not going to take to you favourably, they'll take to Facebook, and then another 40 people know about your problems. And I think a lot of that is I want to talk sometimes. It's the fact I know that it's only going to be a passive set of ears that are listening to it. Yeah, you know, no one's active. How many times do you say, you know, having a really bad day? Oh, we all have them.
But that's why you need to find a tribe, isn't it? And someone that will, you don't just phone up and going, I've had a terrible day. You also phone up and go, you know what, but I've had a bloody great day today. Yeah. Not a brag, but you know what, I've just got promoted, or
Yeah.
my baby started walking. So we need that fluent conversation to keep each other alive.
And communication is more listening than it is speaking. And I think people struggle with that these days.
Well, it indicates that like the biggest range of death between is it under the age of 42 for men is suicide. I mean, there's something wrong there, isn't there?
At the moment, we're losing more people from suicide than we are the coronavirus. In that in the UK, you know,
Per day, isn't it?
per day.
Yeah, wasn't there when this all started? Wasn't there they examined the amount of people who commit suicide against coronavirus, and there was more people committing suicide than there was coronavirus, wasn't there? And we weren't worrying about that though.
But nobody's scared of that because you can't catch suicide.
No.
And I think that's people. We're a very self-preserving creature, the human being, and suicide, it's a sad thing, but I can't catch that. And I think that's why people will talk more about this pandemic than they will the suicide.
Well, it's not just that; it's shut down the whole country as well, and suicide's never done that, has it?
The whole world.
And the sad thing, whether you've got coronavirus or whether you've had someone who's completed suicide, if it's in your family or your loved ones, it's the world to you, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. If it affects you, it means so much. But I think with the suicide rate going up, and I think we're at the very tip of the iceberg. Hopefully, we're going to be having the Samaritans coming on, and Pharisees. I said that wrong.
No, that's right.
Have I said it right, bloody hell?
Yeah.
We're going to have these different organisations to talk about it, and we're going to have different people on. We've got some great guests coming on. But while we are here, and we're talking about autism, if you are a father or a mother, and your child is either diagnosed with autism, or what would you tell the parent to do?
Just maximise the system as best you can. Start to know the law around the system so that you can talk whatever you need to get for your child to make their life easier. So if you've got to go to a tribunal, no, I can't afford to obviously get represented. Make sure you represent yourself correctly. There's like a Disabilities Rights UK. It's probably, for me, I don't know whether it's free. It's
I've been
brilliant.
to tribunal and been through that through getting my daughter into a school. And you're definitely right. It's not only just know that, probably not as much in your, but know where you can get equipment. You don't have, research as much as you can and get as much help as you possibly can.
It's access and now because they won't, and I hope
no one tells you, do they? It's not obvious.
No one tells you, and no one wants to give, and that's the honest truth. You've got to go and find it for yourself, or ask somebody who knows, like us, who've been through the system ourselves and knows what to do. As I say, there's loads of charities to help as well. That's the major one, is access to stuff, because they won't give it to you, and it's there. It's been provided for by the government. It's there. Also, your healthcare plans at schools. They're crucial, because without that, they won't get any. For example, you can get extra learning. You can get extra time in exams. That's all built in. The wraps at work, if you're having problems at work and you don't want to affect your job. They're important to know about your wraps and what's open to you under the Disabilities Qualities Act 2010. That's the main one to know, isn't it? To make sure that they are getting what they should get, and that they're well looked after when they're not with you. And just remember, just live life the best you can around them, enjoy them, and just maximise your happiness with them by doing things with them, and remembering it's not the end of the world. It's tough, but it's not the end of the world, is it?
No, definitely not.
Does your wife go on any of the forums? Does she do any of that where she can talk to other people with autism, or are you in any autistic groups?
No, I mean, I should be Autism Society UK, I suppose, but I tend to just I use Disabilities Rights UK a lot if I need to know something, and also we go to CAMS quite a lot, so I've got that, and he comes here with you quite a lot. At the moment, it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I still think I've got a lot of problems later on when he becomes an adult. I think that's going to be a major hurdle, depending on which way that goes. But it's just trying to stay positive and look at positives rather. There's lots of negatives, and if you start dwelling on them, everything will become negative.
But that's been wonderful. Thank you ever so much for coming on today, and I'd love to get you back on and we'll have another rattle about other bits and bobs, because life. I mean, we've got so many things in life, haven't we? We've got our jobs, we've got our parenthood, and there's so many different things that make us us.
Sorry, Kev, we do have a message from John Paul Shaw. I don't know whether I should read it, because basically it's bigging you up.
Oh yeah,
no,
but
we don't
get
any bigger, do we?
I've been your bruv. He's come up the boxing himself.
So it's not a question or anything. It is just bigging you up. So he says, I know it's off subject, but I can't thank Kev enough. It was him. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have started boxing, let alone coaching. I owe him the world. Thank you very much. And always got a lot of time to listen to these. Keep it up. The good work, lads.
Cheers, bro.
That was read out.
Yeah, I know. Thank God.
but it was read out.
I don't want to say we don't want to groan anymore, do we?
I can't even see it.
Can't you, mate?
Nah,
I can see. I just can't read.
Yeah, my glasses in the car.
So what we're going to do, we're going to finish on a quote today. And what we're going to say is, what's the point in having dreams unless we're going to try our best to make them come true? So until we see each other next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Ta-ra a bit.
Listen.
And that's a wrap for another show. But if there are any comments or messages that you would like us to read out for our next podcast, please be in touch. There are also lots of different organisations at the bottom of this page, and hopefully they can help you or someone you care about. Please share this to spread the word. Until we talk next time, ta-ra a bit.
Listen.